Hey geeks, welcome back for another episode of Best Geek Vlog Ever, the weekly web show that proves it's okay to be a geek. We're your hosts, Brenden Toda and
Ezequiel Gutierrez.
To celebrate the release of Star Trek Into Darkness, we're going to talk about the future of the Star Trek franchise as JJ Abrams is preoccupied. So that brings us to our top segment called Countdown, where we count down
something.
Exactly.
In today's countdown, we'll be talking about our top 3 choices for who we think should replace JJ Abrams as director of the Star Trek franchise. My number 3 is actually probably the biggest name on my list, Sam Mendes. Man, Skyfall was such a good movie, and I feel like really focused things back together again, and he would be a good choice to take on another big franchise. I mean, he's such an incredible, talented director. He might be a very inspired choice, sort of like he was for Skyfall.
So my number 3 I wrestled with quite a bit when putting this list together. When I think of directors who could take over a franchise like Star Trek, you want to go with someone who's familiar with big summer blockbusters. Of course, what pops into my head are people like Michael Bay, for example. He's not on the list because the story point of his directing would be awful for Star Trek.
Yes.
Trek fans would revolt and just kill Paramount.
Yeah,
It wouldn't happen. So that's my roundabout way of saying my number 3 pick is going to be David Fincher. I was just thinking about directors that I own complete collections of. Fincher's proven himself with action with things like Fight Club, obviously.
Sure. As terrible as Aliens 3 was,
right?
He's got the look down for that.
Absolutely, and pacing-wise, he knows how to handle a big budget. I think he would do a lot of justice to the Enterprise crew. So my pick for number 3, David Fincher.
Good choice. My number 2 is another guy who has definitely done sci-fi, and he's done it right. He's done it on a much smaller budget with his first film, which was District 9, which unanimously loved by most people, at least anyone I've ever talked to. District 9 is a solid film. Now, I have seen an early cut last year of his upcoming film, Elysium, and I wasn't totally sold on it. I actually didn't like it all that much, but the sci-fi elements in that film are incredible. He knows how to shoot really good sci-fi, and all the stuff that happens up in Elysium in the ship is incredible, and I think he would kill Star Trek.
When thinking about it, I was thinking Christopher Nolan would be an interesting pick, but it seems kind of an obvious pick, so instead I think I'm going to go with James Cameron. Obviously, he's not going to be available. He's going to be doing Avatar forever. That's all he said he's ever going to make again, but can you imagine his history and pedigree with this type of movie? I can only imagine what type of vision he would do.
Plus, he's taken over franchises before.
He has.
Terminator, great success.
And
Aliens.
Hello. Yep. He would do just fine, I think, of just sliding on in there, putting his own stamp. It's not going to happen, but as long as we're having some imaginary fun, then why not?
Yeah. Number 1 for me is somebody who's worked with JJ Abrams in the past, and that is Matt Reeves, who did Cloverfield for JJ Abrams. I hated Cloverfield. I really did not like that movie at all.
Me too.
But he followed Cloverfield up with easily one of the best remakes of the last decade, which was Let Me In, which was the remake of the Swedish film Let the Right One In. That movie is so beautiful in every way, aesthetically and via the story, and impressed me so much. And now he's got one of my most anticipated films of the year, which is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He's just got a really interesting visual sense. If Rise turns out to be good, he's available for Star Trek.
Number 1 for me is going to be pretty obvious for me. If I've set it up well so far, it's a director that I'm very familiar with, that I own everything that he's ever done. He's going to have another big summer blockbuster this summer, and it's going to be Zack Snyder. I think he would be amazing. He is heavy into the lens flare as well.
Yeah.
And so it almost would look like a spiritual successor to JJ Abrams' Star Trek. Whatever he's doing with Man of Steel, with Christopher Nolan, if they bring that tag team in and they do that for Star Trek, I'll pay you money now for Star Trek 3.
And I think I would like to see that based on the look of Man of Steel and the look of Watchmen too. Now that I think about the grittiness of Watchmen and what we've seen so far from Into Darkness, that might work. Zack Snyder in space.
Again, with Man of Steel, we haven't seen it yet. It just seems to exude the idea that he's going to stay more story focused this time. It's not going to be Sucker Punch, which is a little bit more abstract. If he stays on that line, I think that would work really well for Star Trek and for Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock.
And the crew of the Enterprise.
So in other geek-related news, Merida was inducted as the 11th princess to the Disney Royal Court with a full ceremony over at Walt Disney World, formerly bringing her into the
Princess
Fold. With this induction, there's been a pretty big internet backlash on the redesign of the character. There's just a slight difference in like her eyes. There's a smaller waistline. She's definitely more prissy. It's very subtle, but definitely noticeable. So there's even an online petition trying to have Disney change her back to the way that she was.
Wow.
Not to mention, co-director of the film Brenden Toda had this to say about the redesign. Merida was created to give young girls a better, stronger role model. A more attainable role model. Something of substance, not just a pretty face that waits around for romance. Because of marketing, little girls gravitate towards princess products, so my goal was to offer up a different kind of princess. A stronger princess that both mothers and daughters could relate to, so mothers wouldn't be pulling their hair out when their little girls were trying to dress or act like this princess. Instead, they'd be like, yeah, you go girl. Which brings us to our favorite segment, 60-second soapbox, because sometimes you just gotta get it off your chest.
I'll be handling this one because it seems like every time I do a 60-second soapbox, it has to do with Disney.
That's true.
So here we go. Disney, brace yourself.
Are you ready?
I am so ready.
Soapbox it.
If you told me last year that I would be defending Brave in front of the camera, I would have thought I was probably under the influence of drugs or alcohol. I did not like Brave. I think it's one of their weakest films. But the one redeeming quality to Brave was Princess Merida. I feel like I like her the same reason I like Mulan. They are strong, they kick a little bit of ass, they take their fate in their own hands. And to sort of turn her into this Barbie, which is what it kind of looks like they're doing to fit the mold of the other princess, is the exact opposite of what the whole princess thing is trying to accomplish, which is like setting up these role models. But when you change it from the strong to look at me, we have a little bit of an issue. I think it's bullshit. I totally agree with Brenden Toda. I think it's I think there's small changes, and I don't think you should get so worked up about it like I am right now. But why change it at all? What was the point? You had this whole franchise, this whole movie.
Oh, your time is up. Thanks for playing 60-second soapbox.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Best Geek Vlog Ever. To keep up to date with all our latest episodes, hit the subscribe button right here. New episodes come out every Monday. If you have a suggestion for next week's topic, leave it in the comments section down below, or hit us up at our Twitter at EpicHappensHere. For Best Geek Vlog Ever, we're your hosts, Brenden Toda and
Ezequiel Gutierrez. And remember, every weekday is a geek day.